So we spoke earlier. I told Eugene, I said, look, my friend Julian wants to buy a computer. This is his budget, and then I gave the recommendation according to what I thought might be good for Julian based on the budget. And I think you really have something that is suited.
Well, yeah. So I think most people start with a budget, right? And most people want to. That's how most people think, right? I've got this amount of money. What can I get for it? Yeah. We actually have a different philosophy here. We don't like to start with budget because what if what you need costs less than what your budget has, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah. On the flip side, what if what you need costs way more than your budget, right? Like say, I'm going to draw a very mundane example. Say if I want to cool this office, right? And I go to the aircon guy, I say, hey man, I want an aircon, but I only got like what, I don't know, $1,000. It's going to give me a $1,000 aircon, but it's not going to be effective.
Yeah,
it's going to be a big weight lah. Right, so I think for us, what we want to start with is your needs. Right? What do you want to use your desktop for? And then we, from there, give you an ideal spec. So, okay, if you're going to do this, this is what you're going to need. And this is what this is going to cost you. Right? If it's within your budget, then all dandy lah, right? All good. If it's out of your budget, then we'll tell you what kind of sacrifices you need to make. Maybe some aesthetic sacrifices, maybe some performance sacrifices. But at least you know what you need to get what you want to do.
Yeah, cool.
So it sounds like everything is very customizable.
It is. In fact, the whole desktop, people look at it as a single unit, but everything inside is configurable. Right? Your motherboard, your power supply, graphics card, CPU, anything, your cooler, your LED lights. Yeah, some
RGB
people. RGB, of course.
Yeah, the whole time you've been talking, right? You're just waiting to ask, can I have RGB?
You can have RGB.
That's all that's in my head right now. Yeah.
You can, and different levels of it even. The simple ones, you got the addressable ones.
Now you got my attention.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So how much RGB do you?
As much as I can get.
Actually, I see this tower here. Is this something recommending or is it a different tower?
Well, we can do this one. I mean, what we're running now for March is actually our Dream Builds.
Okay.
So Dream Builds are a new product that we have in March. So how would I put this? So traditionally, what we have are 5 desktops in our lineup. Right? We have the Ghost, we have the Odyssey, the Alpha Pro, and the Reverie. Okay. Right? These are custom desktops made for different people. So for example, if you're a creator, you want a more workstation-like machine, quiet, if that's your thing, then the Reverie is for you. If you're something more flashy, more RGB, tempered glass, and all the things, then the Alpha is for you, right?
Yeah.
But Dream Builds, we took a bit of a different direction. So they're based off the Ghost, which means they will look very similar to Ghost. What we do is we pre-configure certain sets. So we give, a tier 1 would be a i5 9400F with a 1650 Super. And I know some people don't know how to make sense of that, so we do things like benchmarks, right? Say, this can play Overwatch at this frame rate. Yeah. So it's already pre-configured. Pre-configuring that allows us to guide the experience a little bit easier.
Okay.
Right. So if you want good experience at 1080p, take a tier 1 or tier 2, and the frame rates are given there for you. Tier 3 and tier 4 is a different set of graphics cards and CPU, for example.
But those are still customizable?
Yeah. So you can still add storage. You can still add RAM. I think the key feature for the Dream Builds is that because we've locked down some of the specs, we're able to build them beforehand. So Dream Builds are available for same day delivery.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it means you order in the morning, you can get it at night.
Okay, Julian is biting at the seams really. He wants to see.
Let's go, man.
So Eugene, why don't you show him what you recommend?
Actually, why not we just recap? Help me recap your needs. What are you looking to do?
Okay, so I don't play much high-end games.
Okay.
I think for me, it's a lot to do with what's the word? Longevity. How long like the PC lasts.
Okay.
I like it nice aesthetically, not for vain reasons.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Why else?
No, to me it's very soothing when I sit there and it looks nice.
So it's a functional.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a Zen piece.
It is a Zen piece.
So maybe that's why we're going AMD, right? Sorry, that was Zen.
I cannot.
Okay. By the way, before
that was a good one though. That was a good one. Man.
I'm surprised you didn't see me go there. But anyway, he's also a console gamer.
Yeah.
So he's used to crappy graphics and low.
I am. And I'm proud of it.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah, sorry. Carry on.
Okay.
So yeah, functionality, aesthetically nice. Doesn't have to be like a super high performing PC.
Okay.
I don't do much editing. I think I don't really use a lot of what do you call it? Power, RAM.
Okay.
Yeah. To work. I think most of the time it's just a lot of Microsoft Word to do my stuff, send emails,
Okay.
play basic games just to kill time and wind down that kind of thing.
Alright, alright.
Yeah, Dota.
Dota, right. Yeah, well, what kind of games do you play? Dota.
Yeah.
What else? What other than Dota?
Play Dota. I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft.
That's a game, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a torrent druid.
Oh,
Yeah.
see?
Well, World of Warcraft will probably work on an integrated graphics, so that's not an issue.
No,
Well,
but
when you get to the raid, you know, when there are many.
yeah, so just by that statement, I knew I came to the right place. Right? Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I play a lot of World of Warcraft, Dota. Yeah, so like I said, not very high intensity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
So,
Okay, so I mean, I get that you're a gamer, you play games, you don't play very high-end games,
yeah.
and you use it as for work lah,
For
all this
work
stuff.
purpose, yeah.
Okay, so I think there are a few components we can talk about first. The first is the most important thing is your graphics card, of course. Right, the graphics card is responsible for displaying frames in games.
Yeah.
Right, and then a whole range from Nvidia, right? They have Nvidia and AMD both offer graphics cards.
Okay.
Nvidia has a 1650 all the way to 2080 Ti.
Correct.
And if you watch a lot of YouTube videos, I think a lot of gamers they like the 2080 Ti. Right? They think that's the best card out there. And that is I mean, performance-wise, it is the best card, but it's gonna be very expensive.
I mean, you got the Titan all that, but that's a whole different league.
That's right.
Yeah.
So most people don't need the 2080 Ti. They don't even need the 2060. Right? If you're playing Dota, if you're playing World of Warcraft on a 1080p monitor, the resolution of the monitor matters as well. Right?
Yep.
So if you're playing on 1080p, then maybe a 1650 Super, a 1660 Super will be more than enough for you. For these games lah.
Yep.
If you're playing higher end games like The Witcher or Crisis, then you want a more powerful graphics card to bolster those frames.
Okay, so
I mean, so the first approach is what your needs are, and the games give me part of the equation. Your resolution is the other part of the equation. The resolution refers to how many pixels there are on the screen.
Yeah.
Right. So most monitors come 1920 by 1080. Some are 2560 by 1440. That's a quad HD.
Okay.
Right. And 4K monitor will have 3840 by 2160
16
pixels.
times of full HD.
Something I can't remember the other.
Oh, by the way, I just did a video. I released it recently, talking about something very similar. So someone sent me an email, one of my viewers asking me a question. So I did a video about it. So if you want, you can check that out. So I'm talking a bit more about resolution, your graphics card, and your CPU, and things like bottlenecking and all that. But
awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and one thing I wanted to ask. So, judging by what he plays, is it safe to say that he doesn't need ray tracing?
So I mean, ray tracing is a game-specific, it's a software-specific thing.
Yeah.
The game is supported in order for you to use it. If you're not familiar, ray tracing is Nvidia's. It's one of Nvidia's technologies. It's a real-time ray tracing. It's a different way to render the graphics. It's how light bounces off the object to get the object to appear. Right. The old term is rasterize, like rasterize. But now it's ray traced. So it does give your game a different look. I think the shadows are blacker and the brights are brighter. It looks more realistic, but it is game supported. It is game specific.
Yeah. Like Battlefield, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I don't think you play any of those games, right?
Not on the PC.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you port to the PC and you get an RTX graphics card, you can have a different experience.
I agree.
Yeah, you can.
But then you see, at the budget that he's talking about, you're looking at the RTX 2060. Honestly, at that processing. But if you're playing on a full HD, it might not be so bad. But if you're playing on 2K, honestly, in my experience, I wouldn't recommend the 2060. To me, it just seems like a weird. It's like ray tracing for full HD. Other than that,
Right. I mean, it depends on, because everything is so many moving pieces, right?
Yeah.
You can also tweak the settings in your game.
True.
Right? So you can tweak it down to low or medium, and you can still get a decent experience at Quad HD, for example. But yeah, generally, I would say 2060 is one of the best cards for 1080p. You pick that 1080p, most any game you put on the maximum settings, you're free to run. In fact, I would go so far as to say that the 1660 Super is one of the better cards. Value-wise lah.
Okay.
So most people should get a 1650, 1660 Super, good enough for you. If your budget can afford it and you want to just go all out.
For the majority of gamers, that should be like the sweet spot, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Alright, so graphics card.
So I think for you, if it's 1080p and it's just Dota with what was it?
Yeah.
Then maybe a 1650 Super will be good enough. Actually, I don't even know your budget. So let's keep that out of the equation. Okay, we'll put this together. Let's see whether that fits in your budget. Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point about instead of looking at price, looking at what you want to use it for. I didn't even talk about it before. Yeah, because you can have the wrong idea about how much it costs.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's really good.
Exactly.
Okay. So next one we talk about CPU, I guess.
Yeah, the CPU is the next biggest component. So just to clarify, the CPU isn't this thing, right? This thing is the desktop.
Yeah.
Okay, the CPU is the chip that goes on the motherboard. It's often the brains for the desktop. Okay, anytime your desktop does an action, you tell it to do something, the CPU processes those commands. It's a central processing unit. So CPU is involved in gaming as well, but it's not the core component.
Okay.
Your graphics card is the core component. It's the one that produces the image.
Yeah.
Okay. So CPU wise, most people think they need an i7, or you don't really need that. One more thing to note: a laptop and a desktop, they have different kinds of processors and CPUs.
Yeah.
So if you're used to using an i7 on a laptop, you may not need an i7 on a desktop. An i5 on a desktop may be good enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another thing is majority of games, maybe excluding maybe Anno, the game Anno, mostly single core.
Yeah.
So your clock speed of that single core is sometimes more important than how many cores you have.
Correct.
Right.
So to simplify, what he's talking about is every CPUs are different, right? Different ranges. The Intel ones are the easiest to describe: i3, i5, i7, i9. Each of these ranges has its own number of cores and threads, and this is what distinguishes the i3 from i5 from i7.
Okay.
So an i3 has 4 cores and 4 threads, for example. Okay, and i5 has 6 cores and 6 threads, so on and so forth. Right? The more cores you have, the more parallel processing arms the CPU has. So what he means is that most games don't fully utilize this parallel processing. When you render a video, when you do some animation maybe, that comes into play. When you hit render, all the cores will bump up to maximum. But when you play a game, if you open your task manager, you'll see that not all the cores are running at full speed. Maybe 1 or 2 cores will be running at full speed. Which means if you take an i5, 6 cores, only 2 cores are being used. If you bump up to the i7, you get 8 cores, but you'll still only use 2 cores.
So essentially, you have something that you don't really use.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially correct.
Alright.
So the term for it is overkill.
Okay. So for him, what would you recommend?
Well, in addition to Intel processors, there are AMD processors as well. Okay, we don't need to get too technical with the differences, but AMD basically came up with a new line of processors mid last year. They are the new Ryzen 3000 series processors.
Yep.
Okay, they offer more value per core, which means that if you want a 6-core 12-thread from Intel, it's going to be more expensive than the Ryzen equivalent.
Yep.
So the very popular one today is the 3600. The Ryzen 5 3600 is 6 cores, 12 threads. I think the 8700K has 6 cores and 12 threads also, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It costs 6.1 threads. So it's good for gamers who are looking to don't want to bottleneck their graphics card. At 1080p, 1650 Super, the 3600 is a good pair for it. If you're doing some streaming, this would work well as well. For example, if you want to play games, one more thing. You're going to stream the gameplay online, right? It's really popular nowadays.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
So apart from getting the right processor for what you do, I think another reason when we spoke about was making the PC relatively future-proof. So this is also something that played a part in the consideration, I assume.
Well, yes.
Yeah, because the 3600, despite it being very relatively priced, it is how many cores? 6 cores. 6 cores, 12 threads. I can't remember what the speed was of that.
A 3.6, I think. 3.6 to 4 point something.
Yeah. So that was something that I was thinking about as well, because right now, like price point, even though you might not use all 6 cores, it's something that is really good value for money.
Yeah. I think on this point of the term most people use is future proofing. Okay, but we're going to clarify the term a little bit. So the term future proof literally means buy once, don't need to buy again.
But that's not really what we're doing, because it's impossible.
Well, not necessarily. Like chassis are future proof. The chassis motherboard size won't change very much. Power supplies are future proof.
Oh yeah,
right. You buy a good one, you can use it for the next however long until it breaks down. But the graphics cards, CPUs, motherboards, these things aren't future proof. The next generation is going to supersede the previous. It's going to replace it. You can't swap in and out like that.
Oh, actually, I forgot to mention another reason when we talked about future proofing is that AMD has. Well, they claim to have confirmed or at least promised that the next, I think, 2 more generations, they're going to keep to the same architecture, the same chipset.
That's right.
So that's another thing that is good, because you know that you don't have to be like, I need to upgrade to buy a whole new motherboard. Right?
Well, not chipset, but socket.
Socket, sorry.
Yeah, socket. So that's right. So in terms of future proofing, this is more future proof than the Intel one, because you buy this one set, your motherboard this generation will be able to work with the CPU from the next generation. Likely to be like.
Yeah, maybe just a firmware upgrade or something.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Whereas Intel, I think usually a new generation of CPUs come with a new generation of motherboards, and they're not cross-compatible.
And the previous one becomes obsolete.
If you want to upgrade to a new CPU. Alright, so that's cool.
Yeah,
Okay,
so I would say the 3600 works well for you with the 1650 Super.
Okay.
Motherboard wise, most people tend to want to get a good motherboard. From our experience, motherboard doesn't add performance. So you get one that has the features that you need, and then that's good, call it a day.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So the X series motherboards now have a new feature, the Gen 4, PCIe Gen 4.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi 6, for example, they're on board for the X570 motherboards. If you don't need super fast storage and you don't even have a Wi-Fi 6 router, then
It doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter to you.
So in terms of motherboard, what would you recommend?
I think a B450 is very popular. Yeah, B450 chipset.
Okay.
They don't have a 5 series here, right? For B.
Not yet. B550 coming out, I would heard mid this year, but I can't confirm.
Yeah, anyway, so right now it's either X570 or B450.
450, correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
and most people take the B450 because it's functional.
Yeah.
And it's good enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I mean, and it doesn't affect your RGB.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, next one would be RAM. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. AMD tends to utilize RAMs with better speeds better. Is
Well,
that right?
that's a bit of a tricky statement.
Okay.
So I think AMD processors do perform better with higher clock RAM, but at the same time, there are RAM kits that are designed for AMD. So what I mean to say is beyond AMD's default speed 2933 MHz, right? If you want to clock the RAM higher than that, say you got a 3200 kit or a 3600, if you buy a non-AMD kit, it may not clock at 3600.
I see.
Yeah, so if you get a regular Intel kit, or regular kits, right? They don't call them Intel kits, right? Regular kit, not AMD certified, then you may end up with a RAM kit that only runs at 266. Otherwise, it can't boot, or if you try to set it to 200, it won't go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
So AMD has their own AMD kits. They often come in pairs. So you buy their dual channel, get a 3200, a 3600. That will be okay, kind of good.
So we're looking at what, 16 gigabytes?
I think 16 gigabytes is more than enough when you play games. Yeah.
And RGB?
Of course.
Yeah.
So which one? I think the one that you guys have is Corsair, is it?
Yeah,
Vengeance?
the Vengeance RGB Pro is, of course, there is again an AMD version and a non-AMD version. So the one we have is the Corsair Vengeance RGB
Okay, so there are two reasons why I asked about the Corsair. Because we will talk about this later when we talk more about the RGB. Anyway, never mind. So we've covered GPU, we've covered CPU, we've covered RAM, we've covered the motherboard.
Yep.
We are left with, before we talk about storage, let's talk about power supply.
Okay.
I'm just gonna guess. Are we looking at 600, 700, or maybe 650 watt? Is it gonna be enough?
Yeah, that's going to be more than enough.
More than enough?
Yeah, more than enough. So I think most people think the higher the voltage of the power supply, the better.
Okay.
But from what thinking from a functional perspective, you're only going to use so much power. The components only draw so much power. So for a computer like yours, maybe you'll draw between 400 to 500 watts at the most if you push the processor to its limit.
Yeah.
Right? 650 watts is more than enough to cover that. Okay. Second, power supplies have an efficiency curve. What that means is that if you're underusing your power supply, if you've got a 1000 watt power supply, for example, right, I mean, you're going to be using maybe 30% to 20% of the power supply, it's not going to be the most efficient. It's not going to run its maximum efficiency. Power supplies are usually most efficient in the 40 to 60% range.
Okay.
Yeah, so you don't want to overspec your power supply, it's useless anyway.
Yeah.
So get one that is suitable. In this case, 650 watts, 750 watts, that's good enough.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
One question before we carry on. If let's say whatever power supply you guys carry, if someone came in and said that, look, I want a different brand that you guys don't have in the list, is that an issue?
No issue at all. So we simplify the list so that we know, we can shorten the lead time, right? We could offer all the possible power supplies in the world, but the website will be super long.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I can't carry all the stock either. So So we make it simple. We keep some here, making it easier to pick. If you don't really care about the brand, then this works for you. If you want something that's not on the website, just let us know. There's a chatbot, right?
Yeah.
We'll tell you whether there's a price difference and how long more you have to wait.
Yeah. And just to clarify, just because you say that the power supply doesn't have a brand doesn't mean it's not good.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing altogether, and I could do other episodes talking about power supplies and how even people who different brands don't actually make their own PSUs.
Okay.
That's a whole different thing. Okay, but anyway, yeah. So we've covered PSU now. Storage.
Yep.
Before
that, actually, I think we missed the cooler. The cooler adds a.
Okay, we'll talk. I'm gonna go to that and then we move to the RGB.
Okay. Storage was there.
Yeah. Okay. So storage. What I usually recommend, and I get a lot of people asking me, always have your operating system on an SSD.
Yep.
Okay, and then if you want, you can put like your other documents or movies, however you get them, music. You can put it on a hard disk.
Yep.
Either 7200 RPM or 5400 RPM, still okay. When it comes to games, I'm a bit conflicted. I prefer to have my games on my SSD. But some people are like, no, you can put it on a hard disk, just make sure that it's 7200 RPM. What is your take on this?
Well, it's a very soft touch. So games, like all software and everything, takes time to load.
Yeah.
Right? And loading speed is determined by how fast your drive can work. So if you want to load into your game fast, take SSD of course, load it on your SSD.
Yeah.
The con of that is the SSD is more expensive. Right, so you can only put so many games on your SSD.
Yeah.
There's some games where you don't really need. There's some games. There'll be some games where you don't need that kind of instant load speed, or you load once at the beginning and then the rest of the gameplay is smooth.
Yeah.
And then you can put it on a hard drive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now one of the most important things that kind of gets neglected a lot, cooling for your computer. Okay, so obviously the simplest one, straightforward. You buy AMD CPU, you can get the Rave fans, which I'm sure there are different ones. I can't remember the name. Rave.
Stealth, Rave, Prism, Rave. I also
Rave.
Wow.
Okay, sorry.
That's the third punch today. I cannot. Okay. So on this note, actually, cooling comes in two kinds. I just noticed the cooling. There's a chassis, right? The chassis has fans on it to draw air in. Okay, and that air cools down your components. So that's one part of the cooling. So all chassis must have good airflow.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely.
Second, individual components are cooled by their own manner. So some parts of the motherboard are cooled by passive heat sinks, and the air that's flowing from the chassis will cool that. But your CPU and your graphics card, they have dedicated coolers. So graphics card is usually cooled by fans below. A cooler, your CPU is cooled by this, your Rave Prism, Rave Stealth, Rave thing, it's a CPU cooler. And
Sorry.
King. So for your Rave King, okay, so your CPU is cooled by usually it's either a tower air cooler, okay, or all-in-one water cooler, right? And with the custom water cooling as well, but that's just most people won't get that, right? That's if you want something that looks really stunning, you get a custom water cooler DC.
Yep.
But otherwise, an air cooler, if you can do the job, you should always pick an air cooler. Okay, all-in-one cooler is good if you want a certain aesthetic to achieve. Yeah,
you got his attention again.
Yeah, if you want to achieve a certain aesthetic. Not to say the air coolers are bad. Right? They're really good. They have fewer points of failure because they only have their one mechanical component is the fan. For water coolers, you have the fan as well as the water pump. And if either of these fails, then your cooler is dead. Right? So from a reliability perspective, I'm saying that air coolers are better, but water coolers sometimes allow you to achieve an aesthetic that air coolers can't.
And I mean, generally, like custom water cooling tends to have better temps. On a long run, it's debatable. That you have different thoughts, different arguments. But anyway, for Euron, first he wanted water cooling, like custom. I'm like, no, that's gonna be too expensive. And then we sort of met in the middle, went with AIO coolers. So AIO coolers are basically all-in-one water cooling. So basically, your radiator to your fan, the pipes are all sealed.
Correct.
Okay. So that's what we're gonna go for. And I believe you have some options for that, right?
We do. So I mean, all-in-one coolers come in 2 or 3 forms. All-in-one AIO means that you don't have to top up liquid. There's no maintenance required other than the regular, dusting of the fans and all that outside. We usually measure an all-in-one cooler's performance by the size of the radiator. So 3 common sizes are 120, 240 and 360.
Which basically 1 fan, 2 fan, 3 fan.
Correct. That's right. The multiples are 120 because the fan is a 120mm fan. 120 by 120. Yeah. So a good cooler for yours would be a 240mm rack. I think that's a very common configuration as well.
By the way, rack as in?
Oh, radiator, radiator. So, but a 120mm radiator will perform okay as well. Yeah, for the 3600 at least.
Yeah, I doubt they're going to be pushing it to the max anyway. So I think that's more than fine. Okay, so we've got that. GPU cooler, let's just stick with the fans on the GPU. Please don't do anything other than that. What are we left with?
I think storage.
Storage, we talked about the SSD, right? So I think generally for SSD, for your operating system like we spoke about, I would go with 256 absolute minimum because Windows 10 itself is about 60 gigabytes?
40 to 60.
40 to 60 gigabytes, depending on whether it's home or pro on. Maybe they're the same, I'm not sure. But yeah, we're looking about a sizable chunk being removed by that. One question I wanted to ask for SSDs, you know, like for hard disk, they usually say, oh, keep about 10 or 15% free for, what was it called? Caching? No, what was it called?
Caching, I believe.
Caching, yeah. So, does that also apply to SSDs?
Well, not really. So SSDs work in a bit of a different way. To be honest, I'm not an expert at SSD, so I can't be a judge here. But it's always good to have some free space in case Windows wants to update.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if you want to do something that you can't.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So 256, I think okay, and then a general basic 1 terabyte hard disk.
Well, as a general rule of thumb, we say 256 you can pair 1 terabyte, 512 you pair 2 terabytes, so on and so forth. Yeah, but it's really at the end of the day how much data and how much media you have.
Like for you,
not much.
I think 1 terabyte is safe, and it's one of those things that are easily upgradable in the future.
Correct.
If you're done, just take another one, plug it in, you're done. I've had to upgrade mine 3 times already because of my channel. But yeah, so I think we are pretty much set.
Yeah.
And now for the least important thing for us, but the most important thing
before that,
you need something?
Upgrades, right? Upgrades.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you want to do upgrades to your system in the future, just let us know. We'll charge you the cost of the new component. You bring it back here, we'll install for you.
And that's within the warranty?
Not necessary.
Really?
Warranty is when things go down, right? This is just service.
Oh wow.
Wait, just okay, I didn't know about this. So if let's say, regardless of warranty, I bought my PC from you, and I say that, okay dude, I bought this new graphics card, I bought a new RAM chip, can you help me fix it? Or if I haven't already bought it, can you help me buy and then fix it? So you just charge them the cost of the component, that's it.
I mean, 2 levels.
Yeah.
If it's an easy enough upgrade, then we don't charge any service. But if it requires me to change the whole chassis or upgrade the motherboard, everything will come out and go in.
That's like almost like overhaul.
Yes,
so if you're talking about single component change, you guys will just do it.
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I mean, the idea is to make it easy for you to you know, come back next time in the future and do upgrades as well.
That's very good. I didn't know about this. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So now with your own Sprite and Joy RGB.
Yep. RGB, right? Okay.
Just looking at this system here. 1, 2, 3, 4 fans.
Yep.
Okay. What fans are these? Are these all addressable together with your motherboard and every other one, or are these like independent?
That's a good question. I believe these are Corsair fans.
Okay.
So these are the Corsair LL120s.
Okay.
They're very popular because the L120s were the fans that spearheaded this like dual light loop.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So they're really good. There's a light loop in the center and it's the exterior light loop. Yeah.
So I believe in the basic setup, it is not the Corsair fan.
It's not. It's not.
But that's not an issue. We can just upgrade it.
Correct. That's right.
What I would recommend, Euron, because usually when it comes to RGB, I would tend to make it as easy as possible. Not everyone will agree, or that's totally fine, whichever suits you. Like if I were to be able to control like the motherboard lights or the AIO lights on my PC, but then have to take out a remote every time I want to change the color on my RGB, the casing fans, I find that annoying.
Yes.
So I personally would spring the few extra bucks to upgrade to fans that make everything addressable together.
The term he's using is ecosystem.
Yeah,
right. It's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
So Corsair has built a wonderful ecosystem for all their components, peripherals, components inside as well. And most of the time you control the lights lights RGB . Yeah. So Corsair's IQ software makes it very easy to do that. There are coolers that are connected to the motherboard. You can see them in IQ, select them, and change the lights however you want. Same as your fans. If you own a Corsair mouse and keyboard, then same that way as well.
Okay, cool. So I think we stick to addressable, everything together, easy for you to control. So now we are okay. Just to clarify, we're only getting the tower, only the CPU.
The desktop.
Okay. Yeah, desktop CPU tower. He already has a monitor. He has a keyboard. He has a mouse, so we don't have to worry about that. Last thing now is the case. So actually, what do you think? This looks nice.
Yeah.
This looks nice. It's. I remember, and I've been to your house. I'm not gonna say why. You have. In fact, it's about this size. Your.
Slightly
bigger. Slightly bigger.
Yeah, but I think honestly, I'm not a fan of a big chassis.
Like the Alpha Pro over there.
Yeah.
It's a bit too big. So I think this would be perfect, right? Okay. So
if you ask me, there's a case for everybody. There are the small form factor ones which give you a really nice small look. My wife just got one, also really small. There are the medium sized ones which most people will get.
So this is medium, not small.
This is medium. Small will be something like the Odyssey. I don't have here, it's outside, I can bring it later.
No worries, okay.
Yeah. This is medium because we use micro ATX motherboards.
That was going to be my next question. What board? Okay.
Yeah.
So
we don't fuss with those details on the website, which means that if you get an ATX chassis, we mostly just fit it with an ATX motherboard for fit. Right? So I think the drawback for micro ATX motherboards is the fewer PCIe slots. Just to run you through real quickly, graphics cards go on PCIe slots, and other add-on components go there as well. So with micro ATX boards, I believe you have a total of maybe five slot height, which means that maybe at the most one PCIe slot and another one. Most people say that's like, I can't upgrade in future, but honestly, how many additional things are you going to put? Right? How many graphics cards you're going to have? How many audio cards you're going to have? And if the Wi-Fi is built on board, then you don't even need a Wi-Fi card, right?
Yeah, when you upgrade your graphics card, you upgrade to replace, not to add on. You don't stack. Usually you don't stack, so that's not an issue. And for you, I would say that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. So micro ATX is the most popular form factor for its mix of all things.
Okay.